Okay, so this is how we get around using the quadratic. When we identified all our givens, we came up with this equation, all right? Because what we do not know is the final velocity of that object. Because we don't have the final velocity, this is our equation, which is the quadratic form of, or the quadratic equation. This is written in quadratic form. So, if we had the final velocity, we would be able to get around the quadratic. So, you can make the decision to solve for the final velocity first. So I'm just going to rewrite my givens. I'm going to have v naught y. Not going to have t first. I want to solve for the final velocity first. Still accelerating under gravity, and then still traveling that same delta y. So if I solved for this first instead of time, I would pick a different equation, which would be v squared is equal to v naught squared plus 2a delta y. Okay, and if I'm solving for vy, I would just have to say that this is vy is equal to the square root of v naught squared plus 2a delta y. Now I just want to show you something real quick. Notice here in these parentheses right here that is exactly what is written here. So this term right here actually stands for the final velocity in the y direction. Okay? So what are the other pieces? Well, once we solve for that final y velocity, we now have the initial y, the final y, the acceleration, and we need to find time. So if we pick the easiest equation that we know and manipulate it for time, we're going to see how we get this piece of this combination of things. All right, so I'm just going to change the order up a little bit. I'm going to write my v naught first. So I'm going to say minus v naught plus final velocity is equal over acceleration is equal to time. All right. So if I look up here and I find that my final y velocity is equal to this, if I take that and I plug it in to what the final velocity is into this equation, it's going to read Now let's look how similar that is. So we're only missing one thing. The only thing we're missing is plus or minus. Okay? Now if we think about that, every time we take the square root of a side of a equation, it's always plus or minus. So the math kind of covers all of that. So if we bring that plus or minus down into this equation, we get the same form that we do for using the ideas for the quadratic. Writing it in the quadratic form, using the generic formula, making it specific, okay? Or combining two equations together. Gives us the same exact form. It doesn't matter to me which one you choose to do. I did it this way for 7 years. Observed that 1 year, and now I just check to make sure if I do it this way, I use these two equations to make sure it makes sense. So you can decide what's the best route for you to take.